Spank me.
Okay. I'm gonna spank you with that.
Harder!
Oh my god.
Alice had only accidentally burned herself with a curling iron, but she suddenly noticed the brass teapot on the table begin to move. The strange sight instantly sparked her curiosity. When she lifted the lid, she found 2 banknotes had appeared out of nowhere. In disbelief, Alice reached in and pulled the money out. After confirming it wasn't a hallucination, she couldn't help but glance at the curling iron in her hand. Ignoring the pain, she turned back to the teapot. Sure enough, another stack of cash appeared. The sudden fortune almost left her stunned, but soon, an even more daring idea crossed her mind. Just the day before, during a traffic accident, Alice had noticed an elderly woman holding a teapot. Instantly drawing her attention, she followed her into the woman's small shop. While the woman wasn't paying attention, she quickly found the teapot. Alice walked straight toward it. The teapot was made of brass. The moment she held it in both hands, a strong sense of possession took over. Without hesitation, she grabbed it and ran. That night, her husband John returned home, only to find the house in complete disarray. There were even traces of blood on the floor. He quickly found Alice injured in the room. Panicked, John tried to take her to get medical help, but Alice insisted she had never felt more clear-headed. She then turned, picked up the teapot, and stood up. Seeing that she was fine, John instead looked discouraged, because he had been fired from his job that very day. With Alice also unemployed, he had no idea how they would get through tomorrow. Alice held the teapot out in front of him. John looked confused. Alice quickly explained that the teapot was like a source of fortune. As long as someone felt pain, it would produce money. John didn't believe her. Alice showed him that the teapot was completely empty. Then she demonstrated again. As she pinched her arm, the teapot produced a banknote. Faced with such easy money, John suddenly felt uneasy, but Alice didn't care at all. She believed it was a gift from above. The next day, John secretly took the teapot to the shop, planning to return it, but to his surprise, the shop was already closed. With no other choice, he returned to his car. After hesitating for a long time, he couldn't bring himself to throw it away. Instead, he went to a TV station and joined a public treasure appraisal show. He planned to sell the teapot there. In the end, it was valued at $5,000. What John didn't realize was that this move had already drawn unwanted attention. John and Alice quickly came to an agreement. To avoid things getting out of control, they would stop once they made $1 million. After saying that, they took a deep breath, and each placed a hand on the stove. First, John went to a dental clinic and asked the doctor to treat him without anesthesia. Then Alice went to a beauty clinic for full body hair removal. Finally, the two even got matching tattoos. After returning home, they hid all the money inside the toilet. Early the next morning, 2 bearded men suddenly showed up at their door. John tried to ignore them, but was knocked down with a single blow. After entering the house, one of them searched around, while the other stepped on John's chest and demanded the teapot's location. John pretended not to understand, and was immediately beaten. These 2 were the grandsons of the old woman from the shop. After seeing John try to sell the teapot on TV, they came to take it back. Alice quickly said the teapot had already been sold. As she spoke, she secretly took out money from the teapot and handed it over. Only then did the 2 men leave satisfied. Wanting to understand the origin of the teapot, the couple went to a library. They soon found relevant information. According to historical records, the legend of the brass teapot had been passed down for years. It was said the teapot possessed mysterious powers, but its owner would also face consequences. When Alice saw an illustration showing the fate of a previous owner, she became uneasy. Not wanting to alarm John, she quickly tore out the page and hid it in her bag, pretending nothing had happened. Soon, the 2 stepped into a life of luxury. Sports cars, jewelry, and clothes came easily. They even moved into a large mansion. Their lives turned into endless parties. All of this greatly satisfied Alice's vanity. But one day, a man claiming to be an archaeology expert showed up. He got straight to the point and asked about the teapot. Alice took one look around. Her lavish life had just begun. There was no way she would let anyone interfere, so she drove him away. but trouble soon followed again. This time, it was Alice's classmate, Arnie. He barged into their house while drunk, claiming he had discovered their secret of self-inflicted harm, which they both denied. In truth, Arnie was jealous of their sudden wealth.
Hold that.
The next moment, he grabbed the teapot and ran outside. The couple chased after him. Arnie didn't drive off right away. Seeing how much Alice cared about the teapot, he vented his frustration by throwing it. Then he ran it over with his car. Alice was terrified, but to her shock, the teapot began to repair itself. When they picked it up, it was completely intact. Both of them were stunned. John felt they needed expert advice, so they went to find Chuck. Chuck explained the origin of the teapot in detail. It had passed through the hands of many people. As long as its owner harbored harmful intent, the teapot would sense it and amplify those impulses, leading them step by step toward destruction. Chuck also said the teapot could not be destroyed. The only way was to hand it over to him so he could hide it. Only then could they be saved. Alice believed he was just trying to trick them into giving it up. She firmly refused. Not long after, one night, they suddenly heard movement outside the door. The two bearded men had broken in again. This time, they took all the money hidden in the toilet. In panic, Alice pushed John forward. The two men showed no fear. Instead, they mocked John, but when they saw Alice appear, their expressions turned serious. Only then did they reveal the truth. They had always known the secret of the teapot. They were simply using John and Alice to make money, so they wouldn't suffer the consequences themselves. Their grandmother had already paid the price for her greed, but they had underestimated Alice's obsession with money. After waking up, Alice was overwhelmed with pain. She loudly blamed John for his weakness. With no other choice, the two returned to their old ways, but they soon realized the teapot was producing less and less money. Had the teapot started to lose its power? Or was it because the intensity wasn't enough? So the two went to a bar. They found the strongest man there. John gathered his courage and went up to provoke him.
You are cute.
After returning home, Alice quickly came up with a new idea. She told John to take a shower and wait for her. By the time John returned to the room, Alice was already fully prepared.
Okay. I'm gonna spank you with that.
Harder!
I can't.
Pushy part, don't get me.
Enough?
Oh my god.
That day, while Alice was on the street worrying about how to make more money, someone suddenly fell off a skateboard nearby. At the same moment, the teapot beside her began to shake. She quickly opened it and found it had produced a lot of cash. Alice immediately thought of a new way to make money. This time, she showed up at a tattoo shop as a spectator. She even cheered for a woman giving birth. She went to boxing matches up close and became an excited fan. The money machine was running at full speed again. Every day, Alice drove around the city, looking for every possible opportunity, but John wasn't as obsessed. He tried to convince Alice to stop. However, Alice seemed completely consumed. The thrill the teapot gave her had become addictive. The next moment, she even accelerated toward pedestrians ahead. That scene shocked John. He told Alice to stop immediately, but his words only made her furious. She lashed out at John, calling him useless. The two began blaming each other. Soon, Alice angrily pulled over and got out of the car, but after stepping out, she noticed multiple banknotes appearing from the teapot. Alice quickly understood what was happening. She turned and humiliated John again. This made John feel a deep pain. Although Alice felt a hint of hesitation, she still instinctively looked at the teapot. The moment she lifted the lid, she smiled. She knew she was right. Words could hurt just as much. So the two began verbally attacking each other at home. Soon, things escalated. The more they spoke, the more intense it became, until finally, Something Alice said caused the money to burst out like fireworks. It turned out that Alice had once had a close encounter with Arnie. John felt sick to his stomach, even though it had happened before their marriage. He still couldn't accept it. Furious, John rushed to Arnie's house, right in front of Arnie's wife. He revealed everything. Arnie became enraged and wanted to teach John a lesson. This time, John refused to back down, but in the next moment, he was knocked to the ground. Arnie then noticed the teapot on the floor. He clearly remembered running it over before, yet it was completely intact. That night, Alice complained that the money was still coming too slowly. She decided to go all in and make $1 million at once. After that, she would say goodbye to the teapot. Her targets were those she saw as harmful people. Even if they were harmed, no one would notice, so she asked John to go with her to the woods to dig a hole in advance. The more John worked, the more uneasy he felt. Taking a life would cross a serious line, but he couldn't convince Alice, so he left on his own. On the way, John remembered Chuck's warning. He went back to the motel. Chuck had already been waiting for him. John asked why he didn't just take the teapot. Chuck replied that the teapot would only lose its power if the owner willingly gave it up, so he had been waiting for the right moment. That night, after Alice finished her shower, she unexpectedly saw her face looking aged in the mirror. Alice was shocked. She ran back to the bedroom in panic. Then she saw the illustration on the bed and picked it up. At that moment, John suddenly appeared at the window. The sight startled Alice. It turned out that, in order to wake her up, John had jumped from the window.
But you will.
No, John! Oh my God.
Alice rushed to his side in grief. She broke down in tears and expressed her regret. Alice promised that she would give the teapot to Chuck the next day, but something unexpected still happened. That very night, the teapot was stolen. John quickly realized the thief was Arnie. He didn't want Arnie to fall into the same trap, and he knew the best outcome was to hand the teapot to Chuck. So the next day, they went to Arnie's house. They knocked on the door, but there was no response. John tried the handle and found the door unlocked. After entering, they saw money and blood everywhere. Alice knew they were too late. Soon, Arnie appeared holding a weapon. He was clearly in a highly agitated state. John didn't dare provoke him. But at that moment, Arnie's wife also came out holding a weapon. Seeing this, John and Alice stopped trying to persuade them and knelt down. At that critical moment, the bearded brothers suddenly broke in. Both sides pointed weapons at each other. Not daring to move, they demanded that Arnie hand over the teapot.
Guys?
After a burst of gunfire, the two slowly stepped forward, only to find that both sides had already destroyed each other. And the source of all this was the mysterious brass teapot. John and Alice looked at each other. In each other's eyes, they saw both fear and relief. After packing up and walking out of the house, Chuck was already standing by the roadside. Alice stepped forward and personally handed the brass teapot to him. After taking it, Chuck couldn't help but feel emotional. The teapot was like a key that opened the door to desire. A single thought could lead to heaven or to ruin, and the choice ultimately depended on one's courage and resolve.
With one guitar, heartache and shame, I wanna see y'all ride.